right, we are live for Rise to the Victors. Michigan beats Penn State 41-17 for the 7th week straight. Rise to the Victors is an accurate show title. It's applicable, it's relatable, and it's true. Michigan's 7-0. They're going to their bye week 7-0. It could not be going any better than it's gone. There have been some hiccups along the way, some scares, quite literally, on the sideline. It's been an interesting season and a lot of talking points, and we will touch on them a little bit here during the bye week. But before we do, this is Maize and Blue Review. You can make sure to find us michigan.rivals.com and make sure you guys sign up or check out what Premium is all about and join us in the den where so many Michigan fans are every day discussing Michigan football, basketball, hockey, baseball, at large, all of it, Michigan athletics. We've got everything covered, all sports, recruiting. And when we say all sports, we mean it. So we're at every hockey game, if you can say that. So we are looking forward to delivering the best news you guys can get every day. So come join us over at Maize and Blue Review, again, michigan.rivals.com. I'm Brandon Justice. I'm joined by Josh Henschke to my right. If you're watching on YouTube, if you're listening, just listen along. Josh is here, publisher of Maize and Blue Review. And then Trevor McCue, the Swiss Army knife, the Mr. Do-It-All. I like to think of him as like the Jason Williams, white chocolate, here at Maize and Blue Review. All right. So with that being said, that was an exciting game. I don't know. We can start a variety of ways to talk about that game. We thought it was going to go a certain way. I know behind closed doors, we had conversations throughout the week like, hey, I think Michigan might roll. And we tried to, we keep it even. I think we keep everything pretty even here at MBR. And, we, as a group, we're like reluctant to admit it, but all signs pointed towards Michigan doing something similar to what they did on Saturday. But I don't think any of us predicted it to go to the extent that they did it, to the 41-17, to the 500 and whatever it was. We'll look at some stats before I pass it on, but 563 yards for Michigan, only 268 for Penn State. We know the stat at halftime. Penn State had only one first down, the same amount of touchdowns they had offensively. So it was a butt kicking. Any way a butt can be kicked, as Jim Harbaugh called it. So I will hand it off to Josh, and I just want to, pick your brain a little bit on what you thought about the game on Saturday and kind of where the season stands. We're here at the bye week comes in week 7, so it's almost proper that it comes 7 weeks after the season, and Michigan has its test. I think if the bye week was in between Indiana and Penn State, we'd be having a lot more speculative talk. But given that Penn State came before the bye week, we know a lot about this team that we didn't know 2-3 weeks ago. So just curious what you've learned over that time and where you think this team is at heading into the bye week.
Yeah, it's, this team is firing on all cylinders right now. And, it really feels like this team hasn't reached its potential yet, that there's still things out there that it can do and it can improve on, which is kind of the scary part. The potential of this team is really just yet to be tapped into. And that's kind of the scary part, because you're talking about probably Michigan's most complete game played of the year, from both sides of the ball. It's always, the offense, it was either the offense did really well, but there was something that you were concerned about with the defense, or it was vice versa, something really good about the defense, and then something really, you were worried about with the offense. In this case, it wasn't a perfect game by any means, but it was pretty darn close in terms of, just looking at the stats and how everything broke down. Obviously you can point out a couple of blemishes, the pick that JJ threw that bounced off a couple of helmets. It was an ill-advised throw. Had another ill-advised throw earlier that just fortunately found Corum's hands. So, yeah, you can get into the nitty-gritty part, but really, that at that point, it kind of almost seems like you're just trying to find stuff to complain about, because that was the most thorough butt kicking I have seen from a top 10 clash in a very long time. I'm not going to say ever, but that is a very long time since I've seen something, just a total dismantling of a team that was, extremely confident coming into this game too. The stats kind of backed it up. They had pretty gaudy defensive numbers, and Michigan pretty much undressed them pretty handily. So Yeah, I mean, it's really, I mean, and we've been talking about it all year. Michigan, Ohio State are on a collision course here for the end of the year. Obviously Michigan's got to get over that Michigan State hump. And it's kind of unfortunate that both teams have a bye week heading into game time, but at the same time, you get both teams fresh. So we'll see what happens. But once they get over that, if they get over that Michigan State hump, obviously it's Michigan Ohio State in a collision course for a game of the century rematch. So yeah, overall impressive. A+ grades all around. Just a really good game. A great opportunity to kind of shut up some people that we're kind of doubting Michigan for quite some time.
Yeah, it's a statement win for sure. And I will say it's unfortunate both teams are in a bye week because we spent most of our day talking about an upside down M today. So
Good point.
Yeah, Justice put it best, man. We were reluctantly confident, right? Because
Yeah.
we're looking at the numbers and we're looking at everything. It's like, man, I feel like this is one where Michigan's gonna roll, right? The 5th ranked run defense was a mirage for a host of reasons. But the thing we knew was Penn State's weakest spot was inside on the defensive line at defensive tackle and their linebackers. And Michigan attacked that as well as on the outside, like we expect them to do with Corum and Edwards. So for me, it was just like, I had kind of a realization a few weeks ago, and something I've been telling fans is, hey, we've got to stop comparing this team, the 2022 Michigan Wolverines in week 4 or 5, whatever it is, to the 21 team that won and beat Ohio State. Right. They didn't look like the team that was going to beat Ohio State when they were struggling with Rutgers in week 4. Right. So let this team build, let them find their identity, let them, get comfortable and start going against tendencies and things that they've done to set up teams. We've been saying all week, oh, wait till they go back to that play. Wait till they go back to that play. And against Penn State, they did. We all kind of laughed and I think instantly went to Twitter with like, oh my God, it was a pass out of pistol, So stuff like that. They did what a game plan. Weiss and Moore and then Minter have gotten a lot of slack they didn't deserve because, replacing Gaddis and McDonald, how are they going to do it? And they both called masterful games, in my opinion, vice versa. Penn State, I was very confused by their game plan here and what they did or did not do. So, man, that was just a statement win, and that was a Harbaugh win. We're starting to see, I just told Toski, we're starting to see Michigan build what I think is Harbaugh's dream offense, a team that can dominate with the run, control the run, and then move to play action with a quarterback mobile enough and accurate enough to beat you at any level. So that's about as good of a win as I've seen under Harbaugh. And like you said, we'll see if Penn State was overrated, like everybody wants to say now after a big Michigan win, like we're used to that, right? So we'll see moving forward. But you're right, Josh. I mean, it's MSU's next. The Illinois game looks a little tougher, but it's hard not to look ahead to that collision course in Columbus.
So in the game on Saturday, there was a halftime scuffle, and away from football a bit, things got a bit dicey and I guess immature in a way, but fun all the same. There was nearly a college football food fight. According to the team nutritionist Abigail O'Connor, Penn State threw peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. I laugh, but I'm serious. Like if you're listening to this and you're wondering, this is not satire. Penn State players threw, and this is on video too. You can see it. Penn State players threw peanut butter and jelly sandwiches at Michigan during the halftime fight. First of all, some of us, I would have taken that over what I got in the press box on Saturday. No offense if anybody is watching and they are responsible for the spreads on Saturday. I appreciate everything you do, so no hate on that. However, peanut butter jelly sandwich is a bit of a delicacy. So, but that's a true story. Penn State threw peanut butter jelly sandwiches at Michigan. While that was happening, James Franklin was cussing out some staffer from Michigan. You can't see who it is in the video. Chris Breiler posted a video of it that I could tell, and then Libby had a video too that we got on our site. But we got to see Franklining in the other angle. So, I mean, this isn't even sounding biased at all in any way. Like I try to be split down even, but that's just a clown show by James Franklin, right? Like I think everyone who is a fan of sports, like you don't even have to be a fan of college football necessarily to look at it from the scope of this is the coach of an amateur football team. This is what he's doing, and this is what his players are doing behind him. It was like quite literally a symbolic image, I guess, or scene of what James Franklin has created at Penn State. So while he is in the middle of there's two contrasts here. Harbaugh is swimming through his team to get in between Penn State and Michigan to split it up. Meanwhile, while that's happening, James Franklin's in the back cussing out somebody on Michigan, and directly behind him are 3 players throwing peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. So it's just a visual of what that program has become. He's 1-4 at the Big House. His only win at the Big House was in a COVID year. He beat teams with Saquon, but past Saquon, we have not seen a whole lot out of that guy. And I know it's become like the popular opinion. Like it's no longer a hot take that James Franklin kind of stinks. It's now become a normal, expected thought. And Saturday just added more fuel to that fire. And, lucky for us, we don't have to cover that. And that's behind us. And, we can look and watch and observe. But before we move on from Penn State, I wanted just to add that in, like what a dumpster fire that has become from a like morality standpoint and from whatever was on the field on Saturday too. How do you scheme that bad against the run? Against the run heaviest team in the conference. I just don't get it. Well, besides probably Illinois, but either way, I just don't understand.
Yeah, I don't get it either.
I'm probably the president, or at least at minimum, the treasurer of the Franklin as a fraud category. So, or fan club.
Like that guy got an extension.
Dude, I'm telling you right now, if they don't block that field goal against Ohio State in 2016, he probably doesn't make it to the end of that season. Definitely doesn't make it to the end of 2017. Right. I sat next to some Penn State fans at the 2016 Michigan State game, and they were telling me all the guys they were excited Penn State was going to go after they fired Franklin. Right. So, and the narratives we talked about Harbaugh versus Franklin pre-2021 before Harbaugh wins the Big Ten championship, those two constantly getting compared as if they're on the same level. So, from the Michigan perspective, it's kind of always been infuriating to us. But yeah, last thing on that, like you said, I don't know what they were doing. The game plan from both sides of the ball, I have no idea what Penn State was thinking in terms of we've talked about for 6 weeks now, the weakness of the Michigan defense being the linebackers in coverage, right? Michael Barrett, Junior Colson were targeted twice, and they were dropping back in coverage all day, and they weren't going after him. They were going after DJ Turner and Jamon Green, 2 of the best corners in the Big Ten. So, and then giving up on the run game, he said, I don't know. It was a bizarre show from that coaching staff on the field and in the newly christened peanut butter and jelly Lloyd Carr tunnel.
How about that? What a debut for that tunnel. All right. Well, elsewhere, we'll do a little stat recap before we move on to buy or sell. But Donovan Edwards was spectacular, 173 yards on 16 carries. He averaged nearly 11 yards a carry, 10.8 per carry, 2 touchdowns, the longest 67. And then Blake Corum, who was risen as an undoubtable Heisman candidate, had his 4th straight 100-plus yard game, took 28 carries for 166 and 2 touchdowns, 61 his longest. He averaged 6 yards a carry at 5.98. Michigan did take 9 penalties. I mean, that's one thing to take away from this game, I suppose. They did take 9 penalties. It's a team that went into Big Ten play hardly penalized, and it's walking out of it it's going into it extremely penalized. But Josh, you had a point to make, and I'm going to pass the ball to you.
Yeah. No, I think I just wanted to point out one of the comments that we got here from AO. That kind of just brought about discussing what Franklin did in this post-game press conference. He's the guy that's recruited all of these guys that are on his team, right? And he was the first one to, come out and say that they were undersized and, undermanned after the game. I mean, what? I mean, you recruited these guys. These are your guys. This isn't something that you inherited. You did this. And crazy. So, you weren't saying you were undersized when you were, whooping the crap out of all these lesser opponents you were playing. But until it starts to play big boy football, you're going to start pointing fingers at your guys and not, having Manny Diaz as your defensive coordinator whose schemes suck. It's just, it doesn't make sense. It's hilarious because James Franklin is that kind of guy. He's a fraud.
Yeah.
He's an excellent recruiter. I'll give him that. I mean, he knows how to sell a fake bill of goods. I'll give him that, but he can't develop them worth a lick. He cannot. I mean, he can't develop a quarterback, and that's probably his biggest mark on him. All these talented quarterbacks that he's brought in, Christian Hackenberg left absolutely shell shocked. Sean Clifford is a shell of a man that he used to be at 35 years old, however old he is. Drew Aller, who knows if he's even going to be there next year? I mean, any other year he would have been in Ohio State. So what
if Michigan goes after Aller in the portal? No, I'm just kidding.
Right. And and it's funny because they weren't, and I want to bring up another comment here before we move on. They weren't undersized against Auburn. Exactly. Where was the undersized comments when you're beating the crap out of a terrible Auburn team? It's all fraudulent talk. It's just fraudulent. And, it is what it is. I mean, and the only reason the national media loves kissing his ass is because he answers the phone when the national media calls. He'll give him whatever quote you want, just in return for positive coverage. That's just what he does. And people take a dump on Harbaugh because he doesn't answer the phone and he's not willing to help out the media. And it's just what it is. It's true. It's fact. So, it's just funny how, quickly these narratives turn on their head. And, I mean, we could be making the argument that, people were saying that Harbaugh was a fraud too during their little slip there in the late 2018, 2019, 2020, after the COVID year, you could be making that argument, but 2021 kind of turned it on his head and he's got the culture where it needs to be. And it's just, it's a weird,
that's the difference though, Josh, like just to put a bow on this real quick, when stuff got bad for Harbaugh, he looked inside.
True.
Right? He changed as a person. He got healthier. He took care of some personal matters. He changed a lot of things within his program, was willing to bring in young, energetic coaches and let them put their fingerprints on this program. And whatever you want to say about that contract situation, Harbaugh took a pay cut while Franklin took a new extension that's going to make it $70 million to fire him. Okay. So when it came time to bet on himself, Harbaugh did it. He turned it around, and now we're seeing him like, okay, this is what I wanted Michigan to be. And Franklin continues to tease any level of first half season success into, I might go to USC, I might go to LSU, right? Pay me again. Mm-hmm. And I hate that they get lumped together so often, and I love when Michigan stomps them.
All right, well, removing ourselves from the toxicity that is James Franklin, the oil salesman himself, we'll look at some numbers defensively for Michigan. I mean, they really, as a defensive unit, like they've become undeniable again, right? There's a ton of questions coming into the season about what this defense would do, how it would replace so much. But really, the only piece from last year that is evidently missing is Dax Hill. I know Aiden Hutchinson and David Ojabo are legends, and that's 100% a fact. They are better than Michigan's current pass rushers. That is a fact. But Michigan is getting by just fine with the pass rush that they have, and they will continue to get by just fine with the pass rush that they have. It's going to give them a chance in every game they play this year. The same cannot be said about the back end of their defense, which has been really good at cornerback play, and the safety play has been mostly good. There's just something missing in coverage. And Dax Hill, I think, has proven to be the biggest anomaly of the group. Michigan can produce pass rushers. They can't just go around and pick Dax Hills off a tree, and nobody can. He was a first-round draft pick. That's not a Michigan thing. That's a Dax Hill thing. No matter where he went, it was going to be tough to replace him. Sans probably Bama and Georgia, but and maybe even Ohio State. Who knows? But moving on from Penn State, moving on from that game, moving into the bye week, settling down, thinking about the fact that Michigan is 7-0, everything's gone as planned, there's no hiccups, all is well in the world. Defensive performances from Saturday that encourage us going forward. I mean, shoot, everybody kind of just kept on their ascension, I would say, like stock report wise. We could, of course, go to the expert Trevor. Is there anybody you're seeing on Trevor who is ascending in a positive direction defensively coming off of Saturday's game? Did anybody take a huge leap on Saturday defensively?
I think, I mean, the line, it's tough to say because, again, the Penn State game plan was so bizarre, but I was happier with the linebacker play. I think I'm intrigued by what Michigan is doing defensively to alleviate that, and also what you just talked about, which is replacing Dax Hill, right? So Sainris still does some of that, especially in terms of impacting the run game and, as a pass rusher being sent on blitzes. We saw Jamon Green get used that way Saturday as well. They're doing things with Harrell, dropping him back in coverage, and McCarthy Page trying to find a 2 or 3 player way of complementing what Dax Hill did. But yeah, they don't have the coverage at the nickel spot that Dax Hill provided. That is a big lapse. But yeah, I thought the linebackers played really well. Colson seemed to be a man on a mission. Chris Jenkins continues to thrive and look really good and get better every week in the shadows of Maize Smith. But he's not a guy that shows up in the analytics or on the stat sheet, but on the film, Jenkins is making some big plays. So he's a guy that I think if I had to pick one right now, he's really standing out to me the last couple of weeks on the interior, him next to Maize.
So we got a question about Mikey, which perfectly segues us into the big segment today, which is we're going to do midseason awards and we're going to do buy or sell. We'll start with midseason awards and we'll start with most improved. And I'll begin with Mike Sanderstill, who's been tremendous for Michigan this season. And Jesse Sims makes that point, made that point there. Excuse me. Jesse Sims makes that point there. And I mean, if you guys don't know, Mike Sanderstill, wide receiver for the last few years at Michigan, switched over to defense this year and became a nickelback. We kept hearing about how good he was in fall camp, whether it was, intel wise, or if it was coming from the players and coaches at availabilities and press conferences. Like, regardless, we just kept hearing how good he was. But we also heard how good Cade McNamara was, and we all know how that came to fruition. So there were some hits and some misses on what coaches were passing along at press conferences and to the media. But Mikey Sanderstill was the biggest hit possibly ever. I don't think I've ever heard so much hype about a prospective player who's trending upwards in fall camp, who completely fulfilled on promise. And then some more than Sanderstill this year, because it was so unlikely for this to occur so seamlessly. I mean, I would understand if, like Yabioki, he kind of like gradually drifted into his role, but Mikey has been locked down since game one, since the first series of his defensive career at Michigan. He's been locked in. Now, I understand that Sanderstill was a corner in high school and he had previous experience there, and obviously that helps him. It's not like he just showed up, put on pads, and started playing at the big house the next day. But regardless, to switch to a position for that long and then go back to it and to be able to get into it that quickly and easily and shine in it on a big stage against teams like Penn State is really saying something. So for my mid-season most improved, I will go with Mike Sanderstill. Now, I'll let you guys decide. There are 3 awards. I can do most improved and hand off MVP and then biggest surprise to you two, or we can each pick one of each. It's up to you guys. I can do 1, 2, 3, or we can do one of each for each award.
I mean, I'd like to do it. Oh, go ahead, Josh.
No, I was saying we're probably on the same page here, Trevor. So we can do 1, 2, 3 of each.
Yeah.
There you
That's
go.
fine.
All right. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, for my midseason MVP, then I'm going with. Actually, you know what? No, we'll do a little round. We'll round table the hell out of this. I'm gonna give you your pick for most improved, and we'll wrap it back around for me. So we'll snake draft.
So my most improved would probably be McCarthy Page. I mean, that's like the only guy, and I knew Trevor was going to say it, so it's the unfortunate part of being in this order. But again, that says a lot about what McCarthy Page has done. He's taking snaps away from RJ Moten. He's doing that well. Really come a long way from getting thrown out there as a true freshman during the COVID year and him being kind of, lost in translation last year, trying to figure out scheme and figure out everything else. Yeah, I would say most improved McCarthy Page has been fantastic. There's a couple of really good selections that you could make on defense, but that would be my top choice.
Luckily, there is a very obvious choice to go along with him, and that's Jamon Green. Last year we saw DJ Turner. Hey, Ayo, yeah, we saw DJ Turner basically just straight up take Jamon Green's job. And a lot of conversation coming into this year was at some point this season, freshman Will Johnson was going to challenge Jamon Green for that CB2 spot. And Johnson has been really good. I've made the point that in other years, Johnson could be the starting CB2, but because of Stainristill's ascension and DJ Turner and how good Green has been, he's CB4 and he's given him a lot of depth at that position. But Green has arguably been the better cover corner between him and Turner. We're getting to the point we saw it in Penn State where Penn State went away from Green to target Turner. So a guy he's in his third year now, was not a highly rated recruit. Nobody thought would make a ton of impact, has been challenged every year and pretty much doubted every year. Now as a senior, he's the man. He's been awesome this year.
You were mentioning snap counts. And before we get to the next pick, just some interesting takeaways from there. Jimmy Rolder, who played a lot against Indiana, only had 4 in this game. So it looked like Junior Colson kind of took that spot back, at least for this week. And then you mentioned RJ Moten's snap count in comparison to McCarthy Page's. RJ Moten, who was really like the unquestioned starter of the 3 going into the year and is like fallen off because of how well McCarthy Page has played. Moten had 14 snaps and McCarthy Page had 49, which was second most on the team behind DJ Turner. So talk about most improved. I mean, even going into week 4, I would say Moten was still kind of like clearly the choice over McCarthy. And now we've gotten to where we're at now. All right, next question, or next award. And we'll start with Trevor this time. We'll reverse it back in snake draft style. Next one is the biggest surprise of the season, which kind of is similar to most improved, but biggest surprise can apply to anything about this team or any player, or whether it's good or it's bad or whatever it may be. Biggest surprise, however you'd like to apply it.
Sure. I'm going to go with the Michigan pass rush. I knew it wouldn't be as bad as some people thought. We knew it'd be a committee approach, and we thought, somebody would come from that second tier to impact. I don't know if any of us thought it would be Iabioki this fast, right? I mean, he's literally on the Ojabo track at this point. I had said if by the end of the year he's a third down Uche-like contributor, that would be great. And now, I mean, he's got another year of eligibility, and I don't think anybody expects him back at this point. He's on track to get his way into the NFL. That's how good he's been early. Mike Morris was a guy that I thought could be good on the edge, but not compared to Hutch, just because he's a very different player, compared him to like Wormley and some of these guys that could move inside. He's on track with Hutch too. Again, I'm not saying he's Hutchinson. He's not, but his impact has been really, really good. We knew what Derek Moore would be. He's making an impact as a freshman, but Jalen Harrell was a guy I thought was strictly going to be a run game impact guy. He's been making moves in the pass rush, and then the other positions contributing. Defensive tackle, the pressure coming from Maize and Jenkins. The linebackers, Barrett and Colson, have been making impact. And then Mike Sainer still grades out as one of the best pass rushers on the team coming from the nickel spot. So they have way more sacks this year. I think it's like 10 more than they were on track before. Obviously, it was pretty much just 2 guys driving it. But once Michigan has the run stopped and they can let that pass rush go, they've been really, really good so far in Big Ten play.
Well, this is my biggest surprise. I would say probably the lack of involvement of Andrell Anthony. We've been kind of saying for a few weeks now, like,
know it from me.
Yeah.
Say that one had to be Justice's.
Yeah, right. Exactly. I didn't say Darius Clemens, so there you go.
He's better than all of them. If they play him, better than all of them. They might give him something. He might give him something after the catch.
Yeah, I mean, I think Michigan's passing attack has been fine. I think it could be more dynamic, and hitting the long ball is definitely one of them that can be more dynamic. But like the sheer lack of, lack of passes thrown Andrel Anthony's way is kind of surprising. With Eric all out for the foreseeable future, that's one less target to throw to. And, Schoonmaker stepping up the way he has probably hasn't helped Andrel at all. But I thought that Michigan's pass offense was going to be more dynamic, and at the same time to kind of bring it back in a positive direction. It didn't really have to be so far, just because Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards have been so good. I think that's another big reason for it too, is that you don't really have to be dynamic if you're doing what you're doing on the ground. But yeah, I mean, I just think the lack of involvement with guys like, even maybe you can make the argument for Darius Clemens too, that he hasn't been out there as much either. But Andrel Anthony in particular would be my biggest surprise.
I was going to go a similar direction, in that I was going to say the same thing. So I'm pulling up the targets right now, just to kind of break it down. But if you know me, you know my laptop works like ancient Greece. But yeah, the lack of Andrel Anthony is like jarring to me. Like, think about that Michigan State game. I know everyone's like, oh, well, if Kenneth Walker doesn't exist, like Michigan State doesn't have a chance in that game. If Andrel Anthony doesn't make two incredible plays, the same can be said about Michigan. I mean, that guy he didn't make the same impact as Kenneth Walker. I mean, I agree that Kenneth Walker quite literally kept Michigan State in that game. However, like, Andrel Anthony made two superstar plays, and those were not his only two plays of the season last year, where we all looked at each other like, all right, this kid's got like legitimate superstar potential. You don't walk into Michigan and get number one as a freshman if you're not good. Like, that kind of stuff just doesn't happen here. And I'm kind of shocked to see him not get involved, because it's not like he's a recruit who's come in with a bunch of hype. Like, we've watched that guy in college football games, huge environments, make amazing plays. So it's just shocking to me, because it seems like he's not even involved, like, at all. Like, it's not even like they're manufacturing anything around him at all. And that's what's shocking. I'm trying to come up with something that's going to be good, guys. I'm so sorry.
I just tell you that the target thing, where you're going with that, man. Like, Michigan normally spreads the ball out to a point we think too much, right?
Right.
Bell's got, like, Wilson and Cornelius doubled. Like, he's clear wide receiver one in targets, and then Bell, Cornelius, and Schooner in their own tier, and then there's like this complete drop off. Yeah. I do think between Anthony and Henning, just in terms of usage, it looks like they're trying to get Anthony back into it. And like, he's clearly the guy they want to be that fourth receiver, but they're perfectly comfortable with the top three, which is not a big Michigan thing. Normally we complain they over rotate the position too much, and they're pretty locked into their top three. And I think Wilson playing the slot as opposed to Bell, because I thought Wilson and Andrel would split some time in the other outside spot. And I think that's really what changed Andrel and, frankly, Henning's path to the field, is Wilson's getting 100% of the slot snaps. And for blocking purposes, they don't want to take Cornelius or Bell off the field. So unless they get put into a game where they need to throw it, it just feels like he's kind of blocked at this point. It's really bizarre.
So I just want to point out that we all remember when I said I was still looking up those targets. I just got to there, like, perfect ending, because I just got to it. So Ronnie Bell leads the team with 45 targets, and Schoonmaker is second with 28. So there's clearly a number one target. Roman's all the way down to 23. He missed a game. Didn't really need to get involved on Saturday, given how much Michigan ran the ball successfully. And then you have Cornelius Johnson at 21, and then you don't see another receiver until Andrel Anthony at 9. Donovan Edwards, who missed how many games? 2, maybe 3?
Mm-hmm. 2.5.
2.5. He has 10 targets. So he has more targets than Andrel Anthony, AJ Henning. He has more targets than, Darius Clemens only has 2, right? So I just don't get it. I think Darius Clemens is really good, but whatever. It's fine. We all know that. As far as big surprises go, I'm surprised that, I guess, in a way, I think fans might be surprised that Michigan is playing the offense the same way they played it last year, even though J.J. McCarthy is the quarterback. I think that's not a surprise to me, but I think fans find that a huge surprise based on my mentions every week. They just ran the crap out of the ball and beat the life out of Penn State. Get used to it. This is how they like to do it, and it works. So that's my only comments on that. I'll bring back around for MVP. We'll make this quick. We can all agree midseason offense MVP Corum, right? We don't need to go over that.
Yeah,
no.
Blake Corum's been amazing. We don't even need to break down his stats. He leads the country in rushing touchdowns. I think that might be changed this week. He was second last week. He might be somewhere in there now. I don't know. He has a lot.
Yeah, he's first right now.
So he's first in the country in rushing touchdowns. He's put 2 of his best runs in his career on tape in consecutive weeks. He has 4 straight games with 100-plus yard rushes. He's literally Mike Hart 2.0. It's amazing to watch because it's really like special. Like I think this guy he's starting to be considered a first-round pick. And like that doesn't happen much with running backs these days. But I read an NFL writer who said that he's starting to vault into first-round grades around front offices in the NFL right now. So it's just the elusiveness. And I think Harbaugh put it best when he said you can get so close to where you can almost taste his breath and you can still make a move. It was a very Harbaugh-like way to describe it. It was certainly a funny way to describe it. And then Corum, of course, I think that was Indiana week. And then that weekend he had that run against Indiana where he reversed the whole field and ran 51 yards. So defensively, defensive MVPs. I mean, can we all agree on Mike Morris? Or I don't know if we can really. Do you guys want to go somewhere else on that, or is that unanimous?
I mean, player-wise, I think it's Morris. Yeah. I think Minter deserves a lot of props, and I mean, but yeah, player-wise, yeah, Morris, man. It's like I said, to try and step into the shoes of Aiden Hutchinson, and again, he's not there talent-wise, but so far contribution-wise, he's matched him so far each week. That's unbelievable to me.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I do not disagree.
Yeah, I think Minter's designs have been amazing. My favorite design yet was against Iowa. And it should have worked, but and maybe this is why R.J. Moten isn't playing as much because he should have made this play. But against Iowa, when they were on Michigan's end, when they were in their own end, 20-yard line, not really back to end zone, but they had a lot of field to work with. And Petrus dropped back, and it was an obvious passing down. And Michigan showed a blitz off the corner with DJ Turner. And when he showed the blitz, they drew Petrus's eyes. He stared down that receiver. Turner dropped back into coverage and set up the perfect angle to pick it off for R.J. Moten, who was in a dead sprint ball hawk move because of the move that they made with Turner, and they ran into each other. So that was the best design yet. Didn't work out, but I think we might see that at some point again soon. And I think it'll go a lot better because it was almost like they drew up a pick 6, which is a lot easier to do against Spencer Petrus than most, but all the same. All right, we'll do buy or sell, and then we'll get the heck out of here. Buy or sell. Ronnie Bell, not Roman Wilson, is going to be the touchdown leader for Michigan's receiving room by the end of Ohio State. So Ronnie Bell, essentially it's Ronnie Bell or Roman Wilson will lead in touchdowns. As it stands, Ronnie Bell has 1 touchdown and Roman Wilson has 3, for context.
I think it's going to be Wilson. Bell's going to lead in receptions and yards, but it's going to continue to be Wilson because they will go to that deep shot again. Yeah. I know people want them to right now. They don't need to, but they will again. And Wilson getting screens and different end arounds and all that kind of stuff. He's their home run hitter, so he's going to lead in touchdowns. I think Bell, I don't know if he's going to flirt with 1,000 yards. I mean, that's not often going to be seen in a Harbaugh offense. But he's going to get around 800, and he's going to catch more balls, in the 60s number than we've seen under Harbaugh. But he's just not the home run threat Wilson is, or the red zone threat that maybe a Schoonmaker would be. Or, I mean, again, with how they're rolling the ball, do we even see any throws into the end zone against Penn State? So, yeah, I think it's Wilson by a mile.
Yeah, I'll sell that. I think Roman Wilson too, but I will buy Ronnie leading in receptions and yardage for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think
he's got a nice little margin right now.
Yeah. I think that margin is, I'm not necessarily saying it's too big to overcome, but it's going to have to take a pretty incredible individual effort to pass him at this point. But yeah, it's Yeah, I think I agree with pretty much everything Trevor said. I'm just laughing at this comment too. It's just
Same.
really funny. And for those who are not watching, this is from Captain Banana Peel, which is a great name, by the way.
It's a great name.
I hate bananas though.
Strong name. The comment says Tuck working hard on his one kickoff he'll get, which is an onside kick, which is funny. And so I think going back to the point, I think Trevor pretty much he nailed it. I think Roman Wilson has the big play capabilities. Someone who can kind of take the short yardage stuff and boom. So I do think he'll lead the team in touchdown receptions, but all the other stats I think will be occupied by Ronnie Bell for sure.
All right, next one. J.J. McCarthy will throw for over 200 yards in all 5 games remaining on Michigan's schedule. They will play against Michigan State, Rutgers. Who am I missing? I know there's Illinois, Ohio State.
Nebraska.
There you go. That's one I couldn't think of.
So, yeah, they still exist. Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought they fired Scott Frost and just took the season off. So J.J. McCarthy. Now, keep in mind, he did not throw for over 200 against Penn State. Granted, they ran the ball until they quite literally could not anymore when the clock stopped. But he's thrown for over 200, I believe, in every game other than that. Or I think I'm right on that. He had his largest yardage output last week against Indiana when he threw for over 300 for the first time in his career and followed it up with 145-yard performance against Penn State. So will J.J. McCarthy throw for over 200 the rest of the way by yourself? Pretty attainable. It's pretty attainable, but
it is attainable, but Blake Corum exists. So I think he'll absolutely throw for over 200 against Michigan State's porous defensive back group. I mean, that I would be shocked if he didn't. But and I could see him absolutely throwing for over 200 against Nebraska too. And I think the game against Illinois might be the fastest football game in just the history of college football, because those two teams are just going to run the entire game. So it's tough. I mean, is it feasible? Yes. Will it happen? I don't know. That's assuming that either, the passing game is just connecting on home runs all the time, and the run game is doing what it needs to do, or Michigan's losing. So I sell. It's tough for me to fathom that happening, but at the same time, there could be situations where it does. But next week will be the big tell. I mean, it'll be the big tell if JJ doesn't throw for over 200 yards next week against that Michigan State defense, then he might not throw for 200 the rest of the way. We'll see. So the next week will be a big barometer in terms of how willing they're going to let him get it out and chuck it around the field.
I'm buying. I think he tops 200 every week. The one that I'm concerned about is Illinois.
There it is. Contrarian.
Yeah. The one I'm concerned about is Illinois because, like you said, they might just get to the point where they just let Chase Brown and Blake Corum fight. So he's going to against Michigan State. I think he will against Rutgers, Nebraska. For most of the reason, I think it's just the way defenses are going to start game planning. Penn State, for instance, was just locked into not letting JJ throw it deep. I mean, they were constantly dropping safeties back. There was that one first down play where the safety was on Roman. It's 3rd and 5, I think it was, or something. And he's 15 yards off Roman Wilson. He literally just ran a dig right to the first down marker. He's like, okay, I'll take that. Right. So at some point, the defenses are going to have to adjust and start worrying more about the run game and taking their risks with JJ. And then they're going to pay for it. So I think he's going to get to 200 because he's going to start getting those bigger plays again, those 50, 60-yard chunk pass touchdowns. The Illinois one, because of the run game and potentially the weather and blah, 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 maybe not, but I'm going to go by. I think he goes 200 plus the rest of the way.
McCarthy's still the most accurate quarterback in the country, 77.1% completion percentage, 9 yards per attempt, 9 touchdowns with 2 picks. He's got just under 1,300 yards this season. Yeah, I mean, I think the one thing that shocked me, I might say this is my biggest surprise. JJ McCarthy only has 2 more big time throws than he does turnover worthy plays. He's got 8 big time throws and he's got 6 turnover worthy plays. Now, granted, that went up this weekend because of the throw into the 2 helmets, and then the throw that just somehow found Ronnie Bell. Like, was that Ronnie Bell? Where he just chucked the ball up? Oh, that was Blake Corum, right.
Yep.
Or just chucked the ball up. I mean, those are obviously 2 turnover-worthy plays. So he was at 8-4 before those 2. So our last buy or sell, before we give everyone their peaceful goodbye into the bye week, is Illinois a look-ahead trap game spot for Michigan. And I actually had this written down, so it was funny that you guys mentioned it in the last conversation about McCarthy's yardage output week by week. But is Illinois officially a threat and a trap game for Michigan? Now, that game is at home, but it's before Ohio State. And Illinois does have a bit of a schedule heading into Michigan. But, I mean, they've certainly proven to have what it takes to counter Michigan, and that is playing how Michigan plays. I mean, I still think that's the only way you can really counter Michigan unless you're just purely more talented than Ohio State. But if you're Illinois, I mean, they're handling teams. I mean, Minnesota's a really well coached and well played, well executed team, and Illinois soundly, kind of undoubtedly beat them last week. So I think we're convinced. I think we all know Illinois is a good team, probably one of the 25 best teams in college football. But are they a threat to Michigan's record? Because all signs point towards Michigan going into that game 10-0. They don't really have anyone they play in between now and then that's proven to be a threat to them. Rutgers, Nebraska, and Michigan State. Obviously, an emotional game against MSU could prove to be, we've seen that before. But all things considered, Michigan should go into that Illinois game 10-0. They should be in the top 3, and so should Ohio State. And a week after Illinois, they'll play Ohio State. Now, anyone who pays attention to this program knows that all they do is preach that they treat every week the same. So as far as we know, this will not happen. It won't be a look ahead. However, is Illinois and how they play in their style. I'm just talking on field. I don't care about narratives. Let's talk about on field. Is there a chance Illinois can beat Michigan? And could that be a trap game?
Yeah, I suppose it could be a trap game. But I think the way that Michigan is going to look at it, they'll likely be ranked heading into the game, Illinois. I feel like they're not going to take Illinois lightly because of what they've got next week too. I mean, you just can't look at them as a trap game anymore because they're ranked and they're playing good football, so you got to take them seriously. I think Illinois is equipped to, cause some damage on Michigan. Chase Brown is a really good running back. He's a damn good back. And I think he can, cause some problems with Michigan's front 7 and especially with the linebackers as well. I just don't know if Illinois is equipped outside of Chase Brown to beat Michigan on both sides of the ball. I just don't know if they have that they have enough to get over the finish line. Yeah, they have Chase Brown, but I just don't know if Chase Brown alone would be enough to beat Michigan. But I think they're enough to give Michigan a scare. Absolutely, they could. I just don't think Michigan is going to go into that game, looking at them lightly because they're going to be a ranked opponent. And you've got Ohio State next week. You're on the precipice of, setting yourself up for all the marbles. And you got to get through this schedule to face Ohio State. So I don't think they'll look at that game as like, oh, this is just a tune-up for Ohio State. No, this is something that you got to take seriously and win. And I think, again, Michigan is far more talented than Illinois. And they're much better equipped to beat Illinois handedly. However, Illinois has had a bit of that luck this year and had a little bit of a surprise factor to it. So, anything can happen. But I just don't think Michigan's going to come in there vulnerable or, taking these guys lightly because of what they have next week.
I don't think it's a trap game. I think Maryland was the trap game for one. Two, I mean, they played with Maryland before Ohio State last year, right? I just think Michigan's now done what they need to do. It's not a matter of preaching like, hey, here's what we could do. They've done it. I don't think they're going to take Illinois lightly. I don't think it's going to be a trap game because now they've been through this and they've proven it. In terms of being concerned about them, yeah, I mean, like we've said, Chase Brown is really, really good. If he was all they had, I'd feel a little bit better, but they do have two really good wide receivers. So Michigan's corners will be tested there. If there's only one receiver, right? Or, again, I hate to go back to the Penn State game, but I think about how they could have used their offense if Illinois uses their offense correctly, right? So it's going to be a matter of the defense. If the Michigan defense can find a way to hold them against, slow down their run enough that the pass rush can make an impact. And then on the opposite side of it, Michigan control the ball and be able to make enough movement on Illinois' defense, which is it's definitely going to be their weak spot. Illinois is going to be in an interesting spot, though, because the week before they play Purdue, which means there's probably a lot of Big Ten West stuff being settled that week. And then their last game of the year is Northwestern. So if they don't lose another game before Michigan and they have Northwestern after that, that game is huge for them in terms of reaching a level they haven't been to in a very long time. So that's going to be their biggest game of the year without a doubt. So it's not one we had circled at the start of the year by any means. And now it could be Michigan's third or even second toughest game if they put up a bigger fight than Penn State. So I don't think they'll take it lightly. I don't think it's a trap game, but I do think they could give Michigan a run. They're built for it.
Michigan does have one of the better run defenses in the country. They have they've got 18 players with a run defense grade higher than 70 on PFF. Mike Sanders still leads the way at 82. Highest D lineman is Chris Jenkins at 80. And the highest linebacker is Junior Colson at 77.5. That is Rise to the Victors. A lot of things discussed today and chopped up here with the fellas, and we appreciate you guys all coming in, joining the chat, and talking to us. If you are listening to the show on Apple or Spotify or wherever you may listen to podcasts, and you want to figure out how to watch our live streams, just go to our YouTube, look up Maize and Blue Review, youtube.com/Maize Blue Review, and you can find all of our shows there, and you'll get a notification every time we go live if you click the subscribe button and the little bell in the top right. Follow us on Twitter at Michigan Rivals. Follow us on Instagram and TikTok, Maize Blue Review. Find us online at michigan.rivals.com. Sign up today for membership. $9.99 a month gets you access to all the inside intel on Michigan basketball, football, recruiting, baseball. We've got a feature with the head hockey coach this week, all kinds of things to pay attention to. Over on MBR. It's just an endless supply of content. You can find us on YouTube every day, Dennis Fithian Show, and we have 5-6 other podcasts that rotate around as well. So we appreciate you guys tuning in. For Josh and for Trevor, I'm Brandon Justice, and this has been Rise for the Victors. We'll talk to you later this week. Enjoy the bye week.